I've joined the Rawvolution at Naturaw because I know that not all raw food is created equal. I'm passionate about feeding dogs as nature intended. After all, you are what you eat, and so is your dog. At Naturaw, there are no compromises, no confusion, just real raw food made with integrity and a conscience, offering 100% transparency, supporting British farmers, and only using the highest welfare assured ingredients is so important. They're a certified B Corp and reduce their carbon footprint by utilizing solar power and planting trees. They only use completely plastic-free packaging that's home compostable. Prudence and Mr. Binks are simply loving their nutrient-dense and balanced recipes. So try Naturaw today. Just go to naturaw.co.uk and grab 20% off your first purchase with my code AnnaWebb20. Join the Rawvolution and feed exceptional raw food. Hello, I'm Anna Webb. Welcome to this week's episode of A Dog's Life. I'm talking to Emma from Priestlands Dogs about why training and boundaries is so important. And of course, this episode is powered by Antonov. Emma Newth-West, welcome to A Dog's Life.
Oh, hello.
Now, you're the head of Priestlands Dogs, is that right?
That is correct.
What made you get into dogs, Emma, as it were?
I don't know if I ever chose to get into dogs, or I can't remember not being into dogs. I was brought up around dogs, and I can't ever remember not being into dogs. And I think it sort of just happened as a career thing, which seems strange, but that is what happened. Yes.
There are a lot of dogs now living in the UK. According to the UK Pet Foods, there's 15.5 million dogs now in the UK.
That doesn't surprise me at all. It is when it's a nice day, especially, suddenly you go out and there's dogs everywhere. There's dogs everywhere.
No, I know it is true. Actually, there are absolutely dogs everywhere. It's got to that point, where I think people think they have to have a dog, but I always think to be in with the in crowd, right? But it's not a right to have a dog, is it, Emma? It's actually a privilege.
It is a real privilege and it's a real responsibility. And I'm very grateful that I myself can have a dog. But I certainly have seen a rise in just the frequency of dogs. When I was growing up, in a class of 30 students, maybe three of us had dogs in that room. And now when I go to schools, because I visit schools with my own dog, she's a therapy dog. You ask the children how many people have got dogs, and over half the class put their hands up. So it's really on the rise, obviously, from state data, but also we can see it everywhere.
Yes, and there's a good side to that, of course, because dogs are good for us. But there's also, unfortunately, quite a few negatives. So would you agree on that? What do you think?
No, I really hear you on that. I think, like everything in life, there's obviously two sides to every coin. But there is definitely a negative, and also just the increase in demand and the increase in the amount of dogs has certainly changed the dog world, on a day-to-day basis, on an ownership basis, and then also just on an industry basis as well. Um, Massively since I was growing up, and even in the last 5 years, I would say it's changed massively.
Yes, no, I know. I mean, imagine you're loads younger than I am, so imagine me. When I grew up, no one had dogs. I mean, we did, my family did. And I was around, grown-ups that had lots of dogs. And, I went to Crufts every year from the age of 8 and loved it and was obsessed by the breeds and everything. And yeah, but dogs weren't everywhere at all. And even when I moved to London in when was that? About 1987, you never saw dogs in London. When you did see a dog, it was like, oh my gosh, there's a dog. And there's always been that debate, is London really the place for dogs to be? Because I grew up in Shropshire, and now completely the opposite. Shops are dog friendly. And going back to 2002, when I got Molly, my first miniature bull terrier, as a grown up on my own, I was 37. Everyone can work at my age now. Everyone thought I was nuts. I mean, completely bonkers. How the hell, Anna, are you going to, you can't take your dog into pubs. You can't go anywhere with your dog. So basically, it ended up me splitting up with my boyfriend because he wanted to go to the pub, but I didn't want to go to the pub because I couldn't take Molly. So, but how things have changed, it's radical. I feel sometimes that the distinction between people and dogs has got a bit too blurred. Does that at all make sense?
I think so. If you mean from a sort of, this is a word that I know how to spell but not say, anthropomorphizing point of view, in
Yes,
that
that's
I do
exactly.
think that, yeah, exactly, if that's what you mean, then I do see that a lot. And it is funny. We do it for humor, we put human traits onto our dogs and we sort of can't, sometimes we can't help it, or we don't feel like we can help it. But I do think that there's a massive blur, and now we're sort of possibly tipping into this. we've gone we've tried to swing away from overly sort of punishing dogs and overly controlling dogs, or we're swinging away from things that we do know better than, I believe, and we've maybe swung a little bit too far the other way. And or some I see some narratives come out that's come into this sort of permissive narrative where things like boundaries are now seen as wrong, and actually boundaries are a really positive thing. And it's a very linear black and white perspective, and that is where this, with viewing dogs as people, it can be, well, it can be just a bit messy, but it also can be quite dangerous on the other end of the scale. So we need to be really careful in that regard, for sure.
Well, yes. I mean, dog bites, have risen dramatically since 2018.
Yeah.
I mean, back in the day, dogs never made headlines. I certainly, growing up, didn't know anyone that had been bitten by a dog. So I agree, there is this line, and I think people not understanding that dogs are dogs and they have their own language, which I know
Yeah.
because you've studied with a great friend of mine called Ross McCarthy
Yeah.
at the CIDBT, which is great because you're talking about boundaries, but also, I mean, really, children need boundaries as well. I had a lot of boundaries growing up. I was sent to my room, and things like that, which I actually
Well,
didn't mind. I loved it. I had a great bedroom,
I think also, I mean, children need boundaries, adults need boundaries. I mean, I need boundaries. I think everybody, people, places, relationships, we all need boundaries. And it's not a controlling thing. It's genuinely just a preservation thing. It's just a compassionate thing. It's a lovely thing. Relationships without boundaries, like, are dangerous, even if they're between people, but also between animals and dogs as well. And the thing I think we forget about dogs, which is a positive thing, not a negative thing, which is similar to children, but there is a distinction in dogs in that they're forever codependent beings, in that the dogs rely on us for direction. They rely on us for those boundaries because they are living in a human world. So they live in a world where there are cars and roads and um, all these human sort of dangers and things going on that their brains cannot comprehend. And so it is our responsibility, and it's a blessing to actually say, like, I've got you. It's not saying, do as I say, and don't ever do anything else, and you can't be yourself. It's saying, these are my consistent boundaries, so that we have this relationship where you can lean on me and I can say, I've got you. I'll keep you safe. And I think it's really important that we remember that boundaries are not punishment. They're actually a really positive thing. And
Yeah, no,
I love them.
no, I agree. I love boundaries. So, Emma, in your day-to-day job, what What are the main things that you talk parents, dog owners through? What are the main issues that you see in your work?
That's a really good question. And one of the things I love about my job is there's never 2 days that are the same. I think on the whole, my demographic and the clients that certainly come to me, um, I offer them a place where I would intend to offer them a place where they can be heard. And a lot of the problems I see across the board is probably, I would say people tend to buy dogs that perhaps aren't exactly in alignment with the lives that they have, and that doesn't mean that they can't give their dogs that life that they so need. But it does mean they need a bit of help in educating themselves on how to support their dogs and fulfilling their brains, particularly, not really their bodies. I see a lot of people, first-time dog owners, buying working breeds or breeds that have high drive and high energy, and it's about signposting them to support either with me or with other people, so that they can help enrich their dogs and then have happier lives and form that bond with them, really.
Yeah, I mean, it's that's similar actually. I agree. I mean, I think it's very much people aren't aware that dogs are so different, that there are different breeds that have been bred over centuries to
Yeah,
have certain purposes, and have, been attracted to a view. Like, for example, I'm seeing so many Firefox Labradors
yeah.
now around
Oh yeah.
here. Yeah, loads of them. It's stunning coloring, and they're a Labrador. What could go wrong?
Oh well, yeah. I mean, we could do a whole podcast about Labradors. I've got my own little Labrador who sort of came along like a sign from, actually was your friend Ross McCarthy, who said, "Get the dogs that you need, not the ones you want." And I really wanted to tell him where to go at that point because my Labrador was testing me. But I think, yeah, fox red Labradors, they're really popular. And these we see trends in dog breeds, and I think social media's got a lot to answer for. But as well as that, when going back to our point about the increase of dogs, there's an increase in demand. And in a capitalist society, anything that's increasing demand, we have this pressure on the supply chain. So dogs are getting overbred, crossbred, and the variations within breeds is now happening so rapidly that one fox red Labrador I meet and then the next, they might as well be different breeds. So it it really is just a bit of a minefield, and it's just about, my intention is always to try and help owners like meet the dogs where they are. So they're trying to work with the dog, not against them, and trying to get them to use their dog's natural drives to go forward. Because, for example, a dog that's a Romanian street dog's been rescued isn't going to have the same bidability drive as a working cocker spaniel that's been bred from field trial champions, because they've been bred for different things and they've survived for different reasons. So we need to work with what we've got, not against it, if we can.
Absolutely. But I guess, going back a few paces, something that I find my biggest bugbear, and I'm sure it could be stopped, is buying dogs on the internet. I know
Mm.
people need to perhaps advertise online or whatever through all these social channels and everything. But, this actual purchasing, accepting money for things through the internet to buy something that you haven't even met or gone there to talk to the people, met the parents, it's really allowing this huge shop window for puppy farm dogs. Basically, we all know that the early stages of a puppy's development, what the mother's been fed on, for example, plays a massive role in how that puppy's going to, turn out.
Yeah, it's so important. And to circle back to our point about boundaries, I think possibly where we've got to is this narrative where being discerning is being viewed as being snobby. So there's sort of like, when we look at things like genetics and how that's played a role in the dog that we're going to have. So being discerning about a breeder, whether it's from the internet or it's from recommendation, being rightfully so responsible in choosing where your dog comes from, is now sometimes seen as being snobby. And actually it's not. Genetics does matter. There's a reason that my Labrador, who came from a gamekeeper, likes to carry things in her mouth. So And on the flip side of that, as you said, we've got this huge rise of puppy farms and then breeders who possibly, hopefully, think they're doing the best job, but really don't know. And then we have all this blueprint plugged into this puppy in this critical window, which is 5 to 12 weeks old. Possibly the owners aren't buying them till 12 weeks. And then owners are coming to me, and lots of my clients often blame themselves for things. And I think it's actually not your fault. It's not on you. And I think that's really challenging, actually. But as you say, it's just so important. That early stage, we need to not underestimate that critical window and how important it is. It's really important.
I agree. I mean, do you ever find it frustrating? This is something, one of my little bugbears is that parents are really worried about, and it's an issue, peeing everywhere. I mean, it takes a while for a puppy to get the idea of being house trained and going outside. I mean, it depends on how systematic you are about doing it. Every 2 hours, pop them in the garden. I mean, it's ideal to have a garden. I mean, there's another aspect. A lot of people don't actually have access to the outside. Yeah. So puppy training, toilet training a puppy is going to be a lot more difficult if you haven't got a garden. But who am I to say that, really? But so much focus is on the toileting. And I say to people, look, they will sort it out.
Yes.
It might just take a bit longer as you haven't got a direct garden and there will be accidents, but please don't focus on this. Please be focusing on training and stimulating your puppy and, getting them out as much as you can, walking them to heel, start young. But there's this myth, isn't it, that some people think, oh, it's far too young to be training and teaching my puppy.
Yeah, I think training, and also, I mean, I hear what you're saying about sort of people not wanting to start too young, and people almost sort of, we've lent into this narrative of letting them be a puppy. And I meet dog owners who say, I need help training my puppy. I say, oh, okay, how old is it? They say 10 months. And I'm very politely nodding and thinking, it's not really puppy anymore. And we're waiting for dogs to grow out of behaviours, which I probably wouldn't have a job if that happened, to be honest with you.
I know, that so never happens. That's the thing.
No, it doesn't. No,
I don't think it happens in people. I don't know where that old adage comes from. Oh, they'll grow out of it.
No, it's a choice. It's a choice. It's a choice for people to learn from their experiences, and it's a choice as dog owners to take accountability and say, I'm going to show my dog, like, if they're struggling, I'm going to show them like a better way. And I think for me with puppies, there's this, as you said, there's this narrative of like, they're too young. And actually that critical window, it's 5 to 12 weeks. If you buy a puppy at 8 weeks old and you're not taking it outside until 14 weeks, it's not too late, but you really have missed like the bit where they're a sponge. And really, for me, if I was going back and I was saying, if I had a brand new puppy now, what would my main focus be? It would be getting them out there into weird and wonderful places, walking over weird surfaces, but in a neutral way, not letting them meet everybody they see or every dog they see, but just that neutral exposure to the world. So they build self-resilience, but also learn that you're the center of their world. And the other stuff, you can teach them a trick when they're 8 years old. You can do anything. But that early stage, as you say, I think people sort of go, they don't want their dog to be in the house. Fair enough. But a well-bred dog that's clean normally, as you say, if you're on it with timing, doesn't normally do that. So we need to make sure we're getting our puppies out and, exposed to the world. And building some resilience. Yeah.
Absolutely. And resilience also to spend time alone.
Yes.
Because, separation anxiety is like rife, at the moment. And again, back in the day, dogs didn't get separation anxiety.
No.
At least I never, encountered anyone, because people were more, I don't know, logical about
I think more boundaries. Ownership. I think more boundaries. To come back to where we were, because separation anxiety, it's a learnt behaviour.
Yes.
It's not, and now we have breeds that are predisposed to it. And I'm like, how can we have a learned behaviour that's become a genetic trait?
Yes. Well, it's that nature-nurture argument, isn't it?
Yes.
Behaviours do travel down the genes.
Yeah, of course.
Anxiety, I think, is a genetic
Yeah.
component. But you know, if it's exacerbated because you're cuddling your puppy the whole time, it's sitting on the sofa with you the whole time, then you go to the kitchen and the puppy is going to think, oh no, gosh, you know. So
Yeah.
it's about the resilience. You
Yeah.
leave the puppy in the kitchen and it gets 4 hours good rest on its
Yeah.
own while you do other things. Then you've got free time when the puppy then wakes up to go out for its pee and then come in and have a meal. Then you do playtime, then it's tired and it goes back to rest. It is hard work, but it's like a massive rotor. It's like you're on a conveyor belt, you know, of setting the foundations, as I always say, and then you build your house on the
Definitely.
foundations. Otherwise
100%.
you're
Yeah.
going to have a house that's going to fall over at some
Yeah.
point.
Yeah. And I think actually it sounds like hard work, especially if you have got, and I'm not unsympathetic to it, if you've got a real emotional attachment. And we buy dogs for selfish reasons, right? Some of us might buy dogs because we do have a part of us that's lonely and we do want that companionship and that affection. But when we put that onto the dog and then it can't cope with us going out because it's too extreme of a drop off. That's what that is, an over attachment to the owner. It's that actually that can be hard work to change that habit in ourselves. But actually, if you have a puppy and teach them, right, I've taken you out for the toilet, I've done some training with you, we've had some play, now I'm going to put you away and you're going to have a nice sleep and I'm just going to get on with the rest of my life. To be honest with you, that's actually probably easier than having a puppy roaming free around the house, chewing things. You know, you have to watch them all the time. And I think that we've swung a little bit too far and is relaxing the boundaries because we're giving our dogs too much choice too early on. And of course, a dog's going to choose to keep, especially when you've got working drive, it's of course going to keep choosing to follow you around and ask for attention and play. And it's because, like, of course, it's going to do that because it's fun. It's not going to choose to go in its boring bed. You have to help dogs. That's what they need help. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. No, exactly. Exactly.
Hey, Anna.
Hey, Mike.
So we've just finished Billy's first 60 days of Antinol, and wow, what a difference.
Really? Oh my gosh, what have you noticed?
Well, he's shiner. He's much more energetic. Not that he wasn't beforehand, but you know, you can see the difference. But remember, I told you he used to have that little limp in his back left paw that he'd hurt himself when he was a pup. But he
Yes,
doesn't seem
yes.
to do that much anymore.
What, the hop, skip, and the jump?
Yeah, yeah. So it's like his joints are a bit better. And we actually had friends around this weekend who'd noticed that there was something good about Billy. And I was telling them about Antinol, and they said, "Oh, what's in it?" I said, "Well, green lip mussel." And they said, "What's that?" And I go, "Oh, well, I don't know. I'll have to ask Anna," as I always do. So
Well,
for next
green
time, what should I say? What's so great
well,
about green lip mussel?
well, green lip mussel, it comes from New Zealand. It's the only place that green lip mussels live. And what's great about the green lip mussel is that it is what's known as a broad spectrum source of omega-3. And the reason dogs need to take omega-3 is that their bodies don't make it themselves. So unless they're getting it through, their diet, which can be omega-6 heavy. And it's very important to have a balance between omega-6 and omega-3. So it's normally through supplements that omega-3 is given. And green lip mussel is unique in its having everything from EPA, DHA, and ETA. So all the main omega-3s.
And how about Binks and Prudence? They must be much better as well.
Yeah, well, they've been on it for over a year and they've been on green lip mussel forever since I've had them. So Prue's 10 now. So she's had green lip mussel since the first day I brought her home, to be honest, but not Antinol. And I only wish I'd discovered Antinol earlier. I really honestly mean that, because it's an oil rather than a powder. So its bioavailability, that means, its effectivity to get absorbed quickly and efficiently by the body is greater.
So people listening now and they want to discover Antinol for themselves, where do they go?
Well, all you have to do is go to Antinol, ANTINOL.co.uk, and then type in Anna Webb and get your special discount. Something that was interesting, because we've seen such a rise in designer crossbreeds, which I get it. They look like teddy bears. They're allegedly, which I can never get over this, hypoallergenic. I mean, how a
Yeah.
living creature can be hypoallergenic. Nothing's hypoallergenic. Is it? I don't get it really. But anyway, apparently they are. Some do shed, some don't shed. It depends. I mean, for me, if you're concerned about those things, just get a poodle. you know,
Poodle or a stuffed dog, a little toy, a little
poodles are
teddy bear,
brilliant,
an
Emma.
actual, or just get an actual teddy bear, like an actual, like you know.
Yeah, I know, but poodles, they're so rare now.
Yeah.
When you see a poodle, I mean, I hardly ever see a poodle. Sadly, actually, well, I'm making that up. I'm actually training a poodle at the moment, and I love
Oh,
it. I am a
amazing.
toy poodle, a proper toy poodle. So bright. I mean,
Of
way
course.
brighter than me.
Oh no, that's you're in trouble there. That's
No, she's great. So it's a joy, absolute joy. But the interesting thing is there is a lot of anxiety in the cockapoo, apparently, according to the Royal Vet College. A
yeah.
big announcement, I think just a couple of weeks ago, that they have found that these crosses are more anxiety racked than
Yeah.
their parents, their
Yeah.
individual breed parents, which again is interesting. Could it be down to the crossing, and this mix of genes that maybe isn't a naturally thing, or is it more to do with the people buying these dogs?
I mean, how you'd ever prove that, I wouldn't know. But I do think it is really interesting, like you say, that there's this sort of a behavior that was learnt and nurtured and now is like genetically being passed on. I mean, if you think about it from a very logical standpoint, when you're mixing two breeds, you don't get to choose which 50% and which 50% goes through. And actually, is it 50-50? Is it, some of its appearance, some of its temperament, which genes are more dominant? It's not an exact science when you're starting to mix dogs of the same breed, let alone different ones. And I think this rise of these designer dogs, yeah, I mean, it's an absolute minefield because when I have a new client, I have a form and the question on there is breed. And I've learned if I see a sort of cockapoo doodle, golden doodle, I think, well, I'm going in blind because I don't know how big it's going to be, how small it's going to be, what it's going to look like. There isn't really a consistency across that breed because they are so mixed. And now we're seeing this rise of anxiety, but also aggression in them and other behaviors as well, like resource guarding or aggressive behavior. And is it down to the breeding? Possibly. I think it's probably a combination of both. And and also they typically do go to people who have not had dogs before. And Cocker Spaniels and Poodles, they're not really beginner dogs. I wouldn't call them beginner dogs. We're going to mix them together. I mean,
no, that's interesting. What would you call? I know what my beginner's dog is, but what would you say? Because I've helped some people, select a dog, find the dog that is going to work with their home environment, their garden, working lifestyle, all the rest of it. Gone from scratch, gone through a few breeds. The one I'm thinking about ended up the perfect Cocker Spaniel, show type from a really good assured kennel club breeder. They
lovely.
traveled very far to get him, and
Yeah.
he's still very much a successful member of the family, really. So it's great. But a lot of work has gone in by that family to achieve that, But what would you say would be your recommendation for a first time?
Oh. I think a first time. Yeah. Normally my question to people is I ask them to be really honest and describe themselves in 3 words, like personality, like personal character, and then try and pick a breed that aligns with that. But I think overall, I mean, I'm biased because I've grown up with Labradors, but I think a really nice show Labrador from like pet lines that's well bred, hips and elbows, eyes, all the health tests, that's from a reputable breeder. You might have to wait a bit longer, but I think a good show Labrador is a lovely first time pet. They've got lovely temperaments. They're visible enough that you can teach them to come back and walk on a nice loose lead, but they're also happy to just be with you, and they don't need a job. But not a working Labrador, a show Labrador. It's very important.
No, the huge difference. But you see, we'll just go on to that. A lot of people don't actually, I've asked people, do you know if the spaniel, the cockapoo, was it a show type or a working type? And then people look at me like, sorry. And I go, oh, well, there's two types of spaniels. And they're like, a fog has occurred, and of course that can make a massive difference to that cockapoo. But, and indeed some have been working lines, but they weren't told about it. I don't know. It goes on and on, really. I just find it all a bit bemusing, to be honest. And I just think if you want a hypoallergenic dog, please get a poodle. They're not easy poodles because they are so bright. That's the thing. And it's understanding that dogs are super intelligent. I mean, so intelligent. It's about shaping up, I think. Would you agree?
It really is about shaping up and being really honest with ourselves and educating ourselves as well. And I also think a lot of ownership needs to come back to this one, the demand in itself, the sort of the industry, but also breeders, even dog trainers, or people who benefit from people owning these dogs. That we have to acknowledge that we are in a position of power. So when a person who thinks, oh, I'd quite like a dog, and they go to a breeder who's marketed themselves very well, says all the right things, has all the right spin, they say, yes, you're the perfect dog owner. Why would that person think any differently? Somebody who's coming to them who has more knowledge than them and is in a responsible position of power is encouraging that because they're going to get money from it. So I think it's about that people shaping up, but also people being accountable that actually they've got a role in it as well.
Totally. Oh no, I mean, gosh, capitalism is, in my mind, the root of all evil, particularly where animals are concerned, really. It is really, really tricky. I mean, at the moment, I don't know, I mean, there was a big story in the Times, day before yesterday, I think, anyway, about the RSPCA really announcing that it's not just a crisis now of abandonment, but it's like a mega crisis. It's like a volcano crisis. So this is also happening, as I think the cost of living crisis is really kicking in. I mean, I always say all it takes is for there to be one big vet bill, and then people look at their dog in a completely different way and freak out, thinking, hang on, oh gosh, I could have another 12 years of this and don't have that type of money. There's another aspect, that isn't helping dogs, I don't think, at the moment, to be honest. A bit of a dig, but it is actually true, and I'm not afraid to dig on that level, there wasn't this dichotomy in the difference between food for your dog and vet bills 20 years ago. I mean, now there's no comparison. I mean, there's you'd be feeding your dog on Russian caviar. Do you know what I mean? It's really become a bit disproportionate, I think, and all the diagnostics and so on and so forth. I mean, that's the thing with age. I've got this different perspective. I mean, back in the day, people didn't love their dog any less.
No.
When you couldn't do an MRI scan on a dog because it didn't exist. So, this is what you've got to look at. And, evidence now is showing that we've been living with dogs for over 16,000 years, and there definitely weren't MRI scans then. There was a tight bond between dogs and humans way back then. So there is this real connection that doesn't need meddling with, I think, sometimes. I think we've made it a bit too complicated.
Yes.
Do you agree? I mean, it's
definitely 100%.
It's not difficult. I mean,
no, I think we've made it complicated. There's so many reasons why. I think there's a lot of noise out there about anything. I mean, I could pick any topic about any field, about dogs or anything else, and I could decide in my head what I want to think about it, and I'll go online and find thousands of articles, social media pages that are going to feed and support that in an echo chamber. So the thing is, when people are struggling now, you've got in your hand, people carry it in their hands 24/7, something that we're addicted to, which is our phones. You can go online and find all these different things to tell you that you're doing it wrong, or you need to come and have this scan, or you need to come and try this plan, this, and it just is overwhelming. And that just compounds the problem, because that in itself goes around and around and around. And I completely agree with what you're saying, that people didn't love their dogs any less when it was simpler. And a lot of my job, and I always say to people, is trying to offer some clarity and simplicity. It's my intention in a world where it's very tangled and confusing. And if you're going to invest in a dog trainer and ask for support, well done you. But try and maybe pick one and stick with it. If it's not working for you, say goodbye and go somewhere else. But if it feels complicated, it's probably not dogs. They are quite logical, and they are quite, I don't want to say simple, because they are intelligent, but it is that they are very logical beings. And when we treat them as overcomplicated things, it just gets very messy and upsetting, really.
Yeah, Emma, no, I agree. Well said. I'm sure, because that's what I like. I hope I do, actually. It's cutting through everything everyone reads online. Something I've done recently with a super Pomeranian that was having some problems. It's great. Got him on a collar and a training lead. So simple, transformed everything. Previously harness and a flexi lead, and then that was the the main bit. After that, it was easy.
Yeah. Or I always say sort of dog training is about marking choices. So it's like, if your dog's doing something you don't want it to do on a repeated basis, can you either prevent it from doing it in the first place, so it's not practicing that behaviour, or can you show it something different? Can you, we're just marking choices and then building muscles, because that's how dogs learn. It's Pavlov conditioning. That's how they want to keep it nice and simple. The same as, I'm sure this is music to your ears, that as a behaviour practitioner, I always recommend raw feeding if you can, because, simple, just meat. Dogs should be on meat. If you look at my dog's food, it looks like what dogs should eat. She should eat bones, because she's a dog.
Well, this is it. Just look at those teeth. They're not the same as a rabbit's teeth.
No.
They're not meant for grinding. Yeah, no, absolutely, no, exactly. Well, look, you are what you eat, and so is your dog. And if you feed your dog lots of starch, which a lot of the foods in bags, it is up to 70% starch.
Yeah,
you're going to have sugar spikes and sugar lows. And from a training perspective, that's, just look at toddlers in supermarkets. It's not conducive.
No.
Along with health, of course. And there's a lot to say that feeding as nature intended does promote proactive cellular energy that fuels everything, including the brain. Lots of omega-3, for good cognition. You're going to be able to train a dog a lot easier, because it will remain focused. Just even the most unfocused dog might stay focused with you for 5 more seconds, which could be it in terms of teaching an alternative cue, as you were suggesting there. Get the dog to do something else that gets rewarded, and they think, oh great, yeah, good idea actually, Mum, I think I'll do that again. I quite like that bit of cheese. I'm going to work for that. And so it is that kind of relationship. But yeah, no, amazing, Emma. I'm loving having this chat. So my recommendation for a first-time dog,
oh
shall I
yeah,
tell
go
you
on.
what it is?
Yeah, go on.
Okay, well, I mean, it is a breed that is actually banned from being bred in Norway now, actually. So there's a clue. I know. And it's a shame. It does have some health issues, but of course there are breeders that are working through those and so on and so forth. And it's about testing, which people can do now, but of course that costs money for breeders to do these tests, but that's why it is important to sort through the mud, sort through the flashy advertising, for dogs, and ideally also actually rescue. That's where I was going actually with this abandonment level, the RSPCA, but it is a Cavalier King Charles Spaniel would be my, particularly in London, where a lot of people, are living in flats and so on. I think it's a great dog, always happy.
Yeah. I think that would be my small choice. Like if you said first time dog for small owners, actually. And I did just finish helping some owners with one. And she was just fantastic. like you say, always happy, always bouncy, just enough intelligence you could do things with her, but not so much that, you know, she was sort of drive leaking into everything else. And wonderful with children, you know, really nice family pet. Yeah, Cavaliers are great, really good choice actually. But as you say, need to be bred responsibly.
I know,
Yeah,
I know, and that's the thing, you know, these latent health issues. But again, research again, is the dog that I want to get, could it have, syringiomelia, this
yeah,
dreadful brain condition for dogs that have, a bit of a round head, which again is becoming more prolific as we want dogs to look like little people.
oh no,
Oh,
no, it's so awful. I mean, but the thing is, when I say sort of if they've got to be bred responsibly, like every breed does. You know, we need to make sure when we're choosing a dog. That's another thing as well is we're practicing patience, because if I said to you I'd like a dog and I want this breed, for example, and it was the right breed for me and the right match, I've got to be prepared to wait to find that right breeder. And I think a green flag for a breeder is that they're discerning, that I might have to wait a bit longer, that they want to know more about me. They want this. That's a green flag. I don't want to go on the internet and find a puppy that's available next week, because I'm thinking, why is it available next week?
I know, but the problem is people are so used to getting everything now because we're
Yeah,
living in a one-click world. That's the issue. So I certainly, both my dogs are old now, which is awful, hate it. But I will be rescuing. I mean, Mr. Binks is a rehome, so he's kind of a rescue. He needed to find a good home, a forever home. No one wanted him, for reasons I found out when I had adopted him. But he's been sterling chipper, actually, really, really proud. And I think the rehabbing of rescue, sometimes readapting them into a good life, is so rewarding, but
yeah,
sometimes not easy. But I think it's kind of getting to the point where this is what I think people should do. And
yeah,
certainly adopting from any of the charities is going to be certainly more cost effective than buying a dog for sort of £3,000. You make a charity donation of whatever you want, but I think it's around 300. So that could be a great, a great thing to do. I mean, it is a great thing to do.
yeah. Oh no, absolutely. And I think also, coming back to the point about being patient, adopting through either private adopting, like private rehoming, or adopting through an organisation, it does offer us a chance to practice patience, because they are more discerning about the homes they go to, and investigating and getting to know you, and they encourage people to take their time, from what I gather and what I am exposed to. So I think it's a really positive thing. But I always think it's sort of adopt, don't shop is fantastic, but it's like for me, I would say it's adopt or shop responsibly.
Yeah, but you're relying on
yeah,
the charity, and I mean, the charity sector, is, I don't know, it's got a bit confused, but so go to a reputable, known
yes,
charity, and then they ultimately they don't want the dog to come back, because there's many more piling in, and they're limited to their space. They
yeah,
can't just suddenly create another 100 kennels wherever they are, but it's at that point. So some dogs aren't, what I mean, they have to assess, is this dog going to ever be rehomable, and make decisions. They can't just take
yeah,
them all in anymore. It's that bad. So I really think, yeah, it's at a point, yeah, the world of dogs at the moment is, we just need to really shape up and
we really do. Yeah,
and stop being in it for our own ego and greed, really.
yeah. I think that's what I mean. It's kind of, we do get dogs for selfish reasons, and no dog owner could say that there wasn't some selfish investment in getting a dog. But once you've got the dog, then it has to be selfless, like the ownership of the dog, because they didn't choose to be yours. So you need to be really honest with yourself, I think, and that's quite challenging, about whether you've got the right home for that dog. But as you say, it does need shaping up. And I also think, on the topic of rescuing, it's a really taboo subject to rehome dogs. And I actually, having grown up, the first dog that I ever remember as a family, we rehomed her. And it wasn't that she was like terrible or horrible. She didn't like children, and I was 3 and my brother was 5. So it wasn't the right home for her. And my parents said, oh no, this isn't right. And I really, really would love to blast as loud as I can that it's not a failure if you rehome your dog. If your life has changed or you can no longer offer all that dog the life that they need, please do consider rehoming it before it's an unrehomable dog. People say, well, I'd never rehome my dog, even if it bit a child. And I'm like, please, consider it a few steps before that. Mm. So we need to make it less taboo, I think, and that saying actually admitting that things need to change. You're not failing. It's not a failure at all.
No, good point. I mean, absolutely. There's, no room at the inn.
No.
Dogs are just being dumped at the moment, tied to lampposts, no previous address kind of thing. That's what's actually kind of happening now. But Emma, no, we should end on a much brighter note, which is that, lots of things can be changed. Behaviour can be improved, particularly if you go to Emma. Where are you based, Emma?
So I'm actually based in a tiny village called Penn Street, which is near Amersham in Buckinghamshire. But I offer support online as well, so I can do online. So, yeah.
Yeah, no, this online thing, it's definitely helped. I mean, before the pandemic, God, what would we do now without all of this?
I know. The
it's
world's
crazy.
got so much smaller.
It has. No, it has. No, it's so mad. I mean, in a bit, I'm jumping over. I don't know where I'm talking to these people. They're in America. But yeah, I know it's totally mad.
It is mad.
It is mad. Emma, I've so enjoyed chatting. So
you too. Thank you.
No, thank you. I really hope you'll come back on and we can chat about a burning issue again very soon.
Yeah, of course. Anytime. Thank you so much for having me. And come back anytime.
Well, and all the links are in the show notes. If you'd like, to hook up with Emma, if you're around the Buckinghamshire area and around those home counties, then Emma's your gal, but also online. So, you can even help people who might be listening in the States.
Yeah, honestly, worldwide support's always available. And I think, as I say, people will need to feel heard. And I'm all ears. I'm ready to listen. So, yeah.
Oh, thanks, Emma, and speak again very soon.
Thank you.
That's our show, everybody. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, go on, rate and review the show wherever you tune into your podcasts. Thanks, of course, to Emma for joining us today, and all the links to Emma's services are in the show notes. Thanks, of course, to Mike, my producer, for all the music and production as ever. And if you're interested to find out more about Antinol, go to my website, which is annawebb.co.uk, and hit the My Recommends button for information on how to get your discount from Antinol and from Naturaw. And if you haven't already, go on, subscribe, because that way you'll never miss another show. Bye for now.